He rode into the burning city on a white horse. No pope had crowned him, no church had blessed him, and yet, before the smoke had cleared from the broken walls of Constantinople, he stood atop the golden throne of the Eastern Roman Empire and placed a stolen crown upon his head. A Latin knight, a Western invader, a crusader. This is not the story of a noble holy war. This is the story of a man who turned a crusade into a conquest, and a conquest into a coronation. His name was Baldwin of Flanders, and he crowned himself Emperor of Byzantium. When Pope Innocent III called for the Fourth Crusade in 1198, the world still bore the scars of the failed Second and Third Crusades. Jerusalem had been lost, retaken, and lost again. The Christian world was fractured, and the Pope believed a new expedition might redeem its soul. But the road to redemption is rarely straight. Rather than going directly to the Holy Land, the Crusaders first made a deal with Venice for ships. Unable to pay their debt, they attacked the Christian city of Zara to satisfy the Venetians, earning them excommunication. That alone should have ended the crusade. But ambition, as always, burns hotter than obedience. Enter Alexios Angelos, an exiled Byzantine prince who promised gold, ships, and church unity if the Crusaders would help him reclaim his father's throne in Constantinople. Desperate and eager, the Crusaders agreed. Among them was Baldwin of Flanders, a pious and popular noble, known for his charisma and diplomacy. But Baldwin was also a man of quiet ambition, born into nobility but always in the shadow of greater kings. The crusade offered him more than salvation, it offered him a chance to rise. And so, in 1203, the Crusaders reached Constantinople. What began as a political favor soon became a siege. When Alexios was installed as emperor, he quickly realized he could not keep his promises. The Byzantine treasury was nearly empty. The people hated him. The city seethed with betrayal and unrest. By April 1204, patience had worn thin. The Crusaders turned on Constantinople. They stormed the walls, burned churches, shattered icons, and unleashed a fury the Christian world had never seen upon itself. The sack of Constantinople remains one of the most brutal episodes in medieval history. The wealth of 1,000 years was plundered in 3 days. Horses were stabled in the Hagia Sophia. Nuns were raped. Priests were killed. Sacred relics stolen. Crosses torn down and melted into coins. And in the ashes of the Second Rome, Baldwin of Flanders stood victorious. The Latin clergy, desperate to legitimize the conquest, offered him the throne. And Baldwin, under the guise of duty, accepted. But he did not wait for imperial protocol. He did not seek the blessing of the Orthodox Church, nor the approval of Constantinople's Senate. He simply crowned himself. On May 16, 1204, in the Hagia Sophia, once the heart of Eastern Christendom, Baldwin of Flanders declared himself the Emperor of the Latin Empire of Constantinople. To many in the West, he was a hero. To many in the East, he was a usurper. To some, he was the Antichrist. He promised order, but delivered chaos. Baldwin tried to rule, but he was no Byzantine. He spoke no Greek. He understood little of Orthodox tradition. His empire was Latin only in name and built entirely on plunder. The nobility of Constantinople either fled or plotted revenge. The Greek people refused to acknowledge his rule. He was surrounded by enemies, and yet, he still believed he could hold it all together. But empires forged in fire rarely last. Just a year after his coronation, Baldwin marched into Bulgaria to crush a rebellion by Tsar Kaloyan, a ruler who had watched the sack of Constantinople with growing fury. Baldwin believed it would be a swift campaign. His army marched confidently into Thrace. But Kaloyan was no ordinary king. He was brutal, cunning, and hungry for vengeance. At the Battle of Adrianople in April 1205, the Latin army was ambushed. The heavy cavalry, the core strength of the Crusaders, was useless in the marshy terrain. Bulgarian archers and cavalry surrounded them, cutting them down like wheat. Baldwin was captured alive. And then, he vanished. For months, no one knew his fate. The Latin Empire tried to negotiate. Letters were sent. No reply. Some believed he had escaped. Others claimed he was being tortured. But then rumors began to spread. The Tsar had locked Baldwin in a tower in Veliko Tarnovo, the Bulgarian capital. Some say he was blinded, others say he was fed like a dog. The most haunting rumor claimed that, after months of silence, Baldwin was executed in secret, and his skull turned into a drinking cup by the Tsar. A symbol, a warning. The man who crowned himself emperor reduced to a trophy. Officially, the Latin Empire announced Baldwin's death in 1206, but they never recovered his body. No grave was marked, no relics returned. His crown was passed to his brother Henry, who ruled with more diplomacy, but far less power. The empire Baldwin created would limp on for 57 years, but it was doomed from the start. The Byzantines never accepted their Latin overlords. In 1261, Constantinople was retaken by Michael VIII Palaiologos, and the Latin Empire erased from history like a stain. But Baldwin's story doesn't end there. Centuries later, in the ruins of monasteries and the margins of forgotten chronicles, strange footnotes appear. One speaks of a Western knight, maimed and blind, who served as a court fool in a Balkan fortress long after Baldwin's death. Another tells of a relic found in a Flemish church, a golden goblet, said to have been forged from the head of a fallen king. Whether true or myth, these stories reflect a deeper truth. Baldwin of Flanders was not just a man who crowned himself emperor. He was a mirror of the age itself, an age where holy wars masked ambition, where piety cloaked greed, where emperors rose not through divine right, but through the smoke of burning cities. He believed he had God on his side, that his crown was earned, that his rule would be just. But history is not written by belief. It is written by consequence. And Baldwin's consequences reshaped 1,000 years of Christian legacy. He did not conquer Constantinople. He dismantled it. He did not unite Christendom. He shattered it. And he did not die a hero. He disappeared as a shadow, swallowed by the very lands he sought to rule. Today, few remember his name. Fewer still remember the empire he created. But in the echoes of the Hagia Sophia, in the hidden vaults of Eastern Europe, and in the silent towers of Bulgaria, the ghost of the Crusader who crowned himself emperor may still linger, not as a legend, not as a martyr, but as a warning.